you want to add some point cloud data or a reality model. All of your points are going to be valid, so to speak, or you really have options. You could either append them to where it's going to use every trust your ground, so you could use merging instead. So that means you're basically cutting out of your point cloud and replacing it with your ground survey. So depending on what you want to do, if you want to use all the points or if you just want to kind of cut one into the other, is what you're going to opt for. We have started recommending that the designers starting their project off with a complex terrain. So even at the beginning of their project, even if they didn't have extra survey data to add in, it's better to start with a complex. That way, if you have to switch out and edit that existing terrain, they don't have to detach it from the project. You can just go in and switch it out in the complex terrain model, and then they don't really have to do anything on their side. It just automatically updates. Now, in order to create a complex terrain model, you have to have at least 2 terrains. So if you only starting off with one terrain model, that means what you're going to do is you're going to create what we call a null terrain, which is like a dummy terrain. It's just a copy. We use like a delta terrain, where we basically just copy your existing and then add it in. And then as you add additional surveys, you can just detach that and replace it with the additional ones. But when we create this complex terrain, we are going to do that in its own file. So before I leave this one, let's turn off the display of our survey. And I'm also going to turn off my triangles. And then I'm going to save my settings and save my file. Now I'm going to go into a different file called TM Combined. So we're going to go Browse, find the TM Combined, and they've just created a blank 3D file here where we're going to attach the 2 terrain models in order to create that complex terrain model. Again, we're going to upgrade the file, so we're going to say yes here. Now once you're in the file, we're going to go in and attach our 2 terrain models. So if we go in, let's see, we're going to stay on survey and let's see, home tab. We're going to attach some references. Like maybe my battery's done on here. All right, so in here we're going to go and attach. And you're going to grab the TM point cloud, and you're also going to grab that TM survey. Now with both of those attached, now we're going to go over to our terrain tab. And in your create method, you're going to go under additional methods and choose create a complex terrain model. Can't hear me? Let's see if I can use this one up here. So what I just did is I went in and referenced in that TM point cloud and also the TM survey. And once you get those in, do a fit view. Then I'm going to be over here in my terrain tab, and that's where I'm going to find my create by additional methods and choose create complex terrain model. And so what this tool will do is it will read my DGN and it will see what surfaces I have in my file, and it will go ahead and preload those into the dialog. And then I can mix and match however I need to create that complex terrain model. So once we're in the dialog, here on the left, it's going to just go and scan the file and pull those terrain models in. and then you're going to pull these over. So you're always going to have a primary terrain. So for this one, we're going to add in, let's see which one needs to be probably the survey is going to be primary. Before we do this, it's actually going to have us review the contours. Let's do that first. So I'm going to close this, and then we're going to turn the contours on for both of these terrains. Now that we're in a reference file, notice I can't turn, the features on and off. So what I'm going to need to do is select Override Symbology, choose Yes. And then once I do that, then I can toggle these on. So I'm going to turn on my major and minor contours. And then I'll do the same thing for the other terrain. So when you all build your surveys, I think it's best to create it just with boundary. Don't leave the contours on or the triangles, because then whoever's using those files downstream, they have to always go in and override the symbology to turn it off when they want it off. So I think keeping it clean is probably the best option here. But every time, even if they go and override the features display, anytime they do anything that's going to reprocess that terrain model, it's going to reread the feature definition and populate whatever features are being told to display. So that could be the case for you as well. So if you ever wanted to kind of override that element template that the terrain model is using, what you would do, in addition to setting the override symbology to yes, you don't need to come up here. What you could do instead is you could choose another element template for it to use. So that way, anytime it reprocesses, it just rereads that element template. So it'll, you would just choose one of your liking, whether or not you want to show the boundary only, triangles, break lines, maybe contours and triangles, whichever one you want. But for our purpose, I'm just going to go ahead and just turn the contours on. So what you'll see is some overlap between the two. If we zoom in. So you can see the contours from one terrain versus the other. And we're going to be bringing those together as one terrain model. Let me show the image, might help a little bit. So that's page 38. All right, so this is what we're going to end up with. So here is our point cloud terrain contours. And then here is, when we have both of them turned on, you're going to have both of those contours for the existing ground and also the point cloud. All right, so going back into our Create Complex Terrain Model, you're going to go under Additional Methods, and we're going to create that complex here. And then we're going to bring over the point cloud first as our primary. And then we're going to bring over our existing ground as a merge. Now you can set these however you want afterwards. You don't have to set it as you bring it in, so I could come over here and change this to merge after I bring it over to the right. But what this is going to do is going to have my point clouds as my primary, and anywhere where the two overlap, it's going to cut out my point cloud and replace it with my ground survey. So help has some really good pictures on how this is actually working. Thank you. Before I get into that, let me go ahead and set my feature definition. So for this, we're going to be using existing triangles. And then we'll name it TM Combined. All right, once you have that in there, go ahead and click Finish. And then we're going to turn the triangles off for our other terrains, or you can actually just turn off the display of the reference. Now what we don't want to do is detach these, because that complex terrain model that we just created is actually ruled to those terrains that we brought in here. So we don't want to detach them, we're just going to turn them off. And this is what we'll end up with. So if I'm going to go here, I'm just going to show you, I think I'm connected to the internet, so it'll bring it up here. So if I go to the help, that's going to just open up the help for the version that I'm currently running. They do have a special survey help, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. So if you go to survey here, that'll take you to the survey side. Now what I want to look at is, I think I'm just going to type in feature type, or I'm sorry, complex terrain. So this is a little bit of information on how to use the tool. Really, any of these tools you can find in here to get some additional information on. But if I come down here, this is really the difference between appending and merging. So if I'm going to be, zoom in a little bit here. So let's say I have terrain 1 and terrain 2. So if this is my primary surface, and then this is my appending surface, that means anywhere I'm overlapping, I'm keeping the points from both. Whereas if I was merging this in instead, it's going to cut out my primary and replace it with 2. So all of this would be 2, and then from here over would be 1. I have another, a better, I think it's in one of the trainings, it's probably better for that one. Let's see, I think it might be in what we're doing next. Take a look. Yeah, so we'll get into that in the next workshop. They go over that option a little bit better. So I'll just hold off on that one. All right, so I believe that's all we're doing with this. Let me see if we're doing anything further. No, that's it. All right, so any